If you have concerns over heart disease, diabetes, cancer, especially colon cancer, but you're not quite sure what to add in for your diet, then this video is for you. I'm Dr. James Bogash, publisher of Modern Health Myths, and today we're going to talk about adding dietary fibers into your uh, lifestyle. There are a few things that are more important than making sure we have a broad base of different fibers in our diet. And the links between pretty much almost every chronic disease we know of and an increased intake of dietary fiber is strong. Like, there's no doubt that these things protect us. It is one of my concerns with a die-hard, lifelong ketogenic diet is that they are generally not getting the same types of soluble fibers. Topic for another discussion, but that is one of the things that always remains a concern for me. It's one of the reasons why I think anybody on a ketogenic diet should really be on a fiber supplement to make sure that we're getting those benefits that we wouldn't otherwise be getting. So that being said, the first thing I need to talk about is the difference between soluble and insoluble fiber. Fiber in general is stuff that we can't digest. So our body doesn't have enzymes to break it down, but then we can break that down into insoluble fiber and soluble fiber. There's resistant starch, but we're not going to talk about that today. Insoluble fiber, nothing can break down. It's what we generally consider roughage, and the bacteria in our gut can't break it down. We can't break it down. It acts as almost a clean sweep approach in the GI tract where it absorbs toxins and it washes things out and adds bulk to the stool. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but I happen to love eating peanut shells, mainly because I'm just too lazy to peel it all apart for that little nut. It's just way too much work, so I just eat the entire shell. Well, that shell, nothing's going to digest, and so that adds to the amount of insoluble fiber in my diet. There are a lot of other sources, whole grains. Think of anything with roughage that you can soak it in water, like nothing happens to it. It just stays as is. On the other hand, soluble fibers are fibers that we can't digest, but the bacteria in our gut can digest, and it is almost always a very good thing for them. They thrive on this. And when the bacteria are happy, first of all, they have a better interaction with our gut. So there are a lot of health benefits to having a healthy microbiome. But one of the other things that happens is when the bacteria break down the fibers, they produce something called short-chain fatty acids, one of which is butyrate. And butyrate is actually a preferred fuel source for the cells lining our intestinal tract. So by feeding your body the soluble fiber, we're actually allowing the bacteria to make a compound that's going to lower our risk of colon cancer. So you can imagine most soluble fibers are the kind of fibers that if you mix them up in a water and you let them sit, that they will gel up. So think about like flax seeds. Beans are high in soluble fiber. Fruits can be high in soluble fiber. There's a lot of different sources of fibers in our diet. And the most important thing is to make sure that we're getting a good blend of them. Artichokes are another great source. From a supplement standpoint, there are supplements. There's one that we particularly like that we use in the office. I'm not a big fan of the things like Metamucil or those. Those are really just a cheap way of trying to get fiber into your system, and they're not my favorite choices for increasing your fiber. So this all brings us down to this particular study. Huge study following people over the course of 2 years, over 107,000 people. So this isn't a small study, this is a huge study. And they looked at both total dietary fiber, they looked at insoluble and soluble fiber on the risk of heart disease, cancer, and colorectal cancer. And they found that total fiber intake led to a 41% lower risk of developing diabetes. Like, that's huge. You add in I mean, that's just the minimal intervention. That's not even talking about exercise. It's not talking about cutting back on our refined carbohydrates, increasing our healthy fats. Just adding in higher fiber will drop your risk by 41%. When they looked at soluble fiber alone, so the stuff that gels up, they found that there was a 20% reduction in heart disease rates, as well as colorectal cancer was a 59% drop. That's a pretty huge drop, but again, I already mentioned that soluble fiber combined with bacteria, again, you have to have a healthy microbiome, no antibiotics, and they produce butyrate. So that would make sense that there's a pretty hefty drop in colorectal cancer risk from soluble fiber. Insoluble fiber, our roughage then was a 35% reduction in both heart disease and colorectal cancer rates. So it's not quite 59, but that's still a pretty sizable reduction in risk from just paying attention to the dietary fibers that you're taking in. Keep in mind that fast foods, processed foods are almost completely devoid of fibers, so that's why we should be avoiding them at all costs. So as always, I will post a link to this particular study in the comments section, and make sure you like this video, share it with somebody who you think needs the information, and subscribe to the channel.